So I remember I had this office job, and I was always just like struggling. Just all these physical ailments are just like disabling headache, disabling fatigue, disabling nausea, sore throat, weakness. Just I've noticed this, in fact, with most jobs I've ever held, that I'd be really prone to feeling weak and unsteady on my feet and unable to concentrate and just not feeling good at all. I mean, just recurring stuff. This would happen probably once a week or so. And then I noticed that as soon as I left work, I started feeling better. As soon as I got out the door from work, I'd start feeling better. I mean, like my father, I've often had sleep problems. And so, let's say I just got a couple of hours of sleep, so I'm just barely functioning, okay, at an office job. Can just barely put one foot in front of the other, one hand in front of the other. And then as soon as I get out the door, I start feeling it a ton better. Like things that are almost unmanageable at work in the office space, and I get out the door, then suddenly my strength returns. And just a profound revelation how much we're affected by these social issues, contextual issues, or psychological issues. I mean, it's got to be a symptom of under-earning, that we just want to keep our lives small, and when we start leading a larger life, we start feeling exposed, and so we come down with these physical ailments, headaches, migraines, nausea, feeling like we're getting the cold or the flu. And then as soon as we're out the door, we feel fine. Heard one person talk about he felt he should take these acting classes. And so he signed up for them. That was Sunday nights, 7 p.m. And every Sunday night, come about 7 p.m., he'd start to get a sore throat. And so he'd stay home. And then by the time the class was over at 9 p.m., the sore throat would just miraculously disappear. So we get these physical ailments to, I guess, as a response from the fear of being larger or exposed. Like wounded animals, when you try to bring them into the light, how do they react? They tend to bite. And people the same way. You bring people who are used to hiding into the light and they start biting. And if we're afraid of success, we're just going to come down with all sorts of physical ailments when we're in a situation that could lead to success. Like, how are you going to have success at work if you're just always coming down with these physical ailments? It's a fear of being larger, being exposed, particularly if all these ailments disappear. You know, once you're in your cave, once you're in your safe space, like, you get back into your cave, get back into your apartment, and all these ailments just disappear. And I've always thought of myself as a strong, disciplined person. And yet, if I haven't been passionate about my job, then I got to admit, I just tend to get all these physical ailments, like, and that always disappear as soon as I leave the job. And on the other hand, when I'm doing something that I'm enthusiastic about, I can overcome a lot of adversity. I can overcome a cold, the flu, sore back, because I'm excited about the work that I'm doing. I see the importance. I see the opportunity to shine. I know I'm good at it. Getting positive feedback for it. And I think was it Nietzsche who said that when you have a why, you can overcome anything. So when you have a job that you're passionate about, you're unlikely to be felled by these temporary physical ailments. When you're walking with friends, you can usually walk farther. You can do more. In my 12-step programs, we call each other for support. And if we're faced with something particularly daunting, we'll bookend. We'll call before and after, or we'll at least call before, text after, and get support to do the right thing. Things that we know we need to do, but don't come naturally. I notice the older I get, the more my brain does not like change. My brain rebels against change, particularly technological change, changes in routine. I just want to keep everything the same, everything familiar, everything routine, everything in my safe space. But when I was younger, I just loved to explore. I just loved to go out into the world, explore. I was talking about this with Kevin Michael Grace the other night, play in the rain, blaze trails, just interested in exploring the wider world. And so life is just continually fascinating. And then as I've gotten older, I notice how my brain resists change, fights change, doesn't like to change. And I think it's becoming stronger the older I get. I think I'm probably more resistant to change, more set in my ways now than 5 years ago, than 10 years ago, let alone 20 years ago. In February of 1988, I woke up with what seemed like a severe case of the flu, and so I stayed in bed for a couple of days. And then when I tried to resume my life at school and at work, I just kept getting relapses. So eventually I was diagnosed with chronic fatigue syndrome, and I do believe like something just snapped in my body. I could no longer, for whatever reason, handle much physical exertion without getting sick. I remember after this, while I was struggling with this, I went out on a routine 3-mile run. That was routine for me prior to this flu-like thing that hit me in February of 1988. So in, I think, March, I set out for a 3-mile run, and by the time I came back, I was just so sick. It was unlike anything I'd ever encountered before in my life. So that was the very real physical ailment. But then as my life steadily shrunk because of this illness, then I had less and less strength because I was more and more isolated. I've noticed that when I feel connected to other people, I have a lot more strength. I can deal with a lot more adversity. And the less connected I am to other people, the more vulnerable I am, the more likely I am to sink into depression or anxiety. The more difficult everything becomes, that joys are half joys when they're not shared, and pain is twice the pain when you can't share it with someone who cares about you. So it's humbling, this little thing called connection, this little thing called human bonding, just how much that affects my physical strength, my ability to overcome obstacles and deal with anxiety and do the things that I need to do. Because otherwise the temptation is just to retreat into the cave, and which in turn, of course, is the definition of isolation. The more isolated you get, the more weird you tend to become. The more weird you tend to become, the more isolated you get. It's all a vicious cycle. The more isolated and weird you get, the more likely you are to feel sick. And the answer is human connection. And I know that there have been times when I've walked into a synagogue and I've thought, oh, does anybody here care about me? And when I told my therapist about this, he said, well, do you care about anyone there? Like, such a great rejoinder. Like, every times in my schooling, I think, oh, in this class, does anyone care about me? But did I care about anyone there? And my therapist encouraged me to experiment with caring about other people. Opening up your heart, connecting. So one of the things that I'm engaging in right now is finding a new sponsor in one of my 12-step programs. My sponsor got pregnant and got a new job and has just disappeared. Just does not answer my phone calls and texts. So I'm on the 9th step in this program, and so I'm having to do a lot of outreach calls looking for a new sponsor. They're not always easy to find. And so I have to reach out. I get phone numbers, I text people, I call people, and I ask if they'd consider being my sponsor. And so far I've just been getting nothing but no's. But I've got to keep reaching out. Just that act of reaching out, it's a form of human connection. Even if the person doesn't turn into a sponsor, it's just one more person in my life, just one more acquaintance. You never know, can turn into a friend. It's a brief, fleeting, superficial, but beginning form of human connection. And human connection is the way out of addiction, out of isolation, out of hiding and biting, out of misery and depression, into the sun of loving life and seeking to be of service to others. I'm just humbled by how much my physical strength depends upon the quality of my connections with other people. My ability to resist colds and flus seems in part determined by the quality of my connections with other people. My ability to deal with adversity and to struggle with a steep technological learning curve in large part depends on the quality of my relationships. My ability to deal with anxiety and to sleep well at night, once again, depends upon quality of my relationships. No man is an island. We are wired to connect and to bond and to attach, and if we don't, life just doesn't work.